The movie begins with a high-stakes mission gone terribly wrong. James Bond is chasing a dangerous mercenary through the crowded streets and rooftops of Istanbul. The man has stolen a hard drive containing the identities of undercover NATO agents. If this list gets into the wrong hands, agents all around the world will be exposed and killed. Bond pursues the assassin across moving trains while Eve, another MI6 agent, provides sniper support from a distance. As the fight gets more intense, Bond struggles to overpower the mercenary on top of the speeding train. M, the head of MI6, watches the mission remotely from London. When the situation becomes critical, she gives Eve a shocking order: take the shot, even though Bond is in the line of fire. Eve hesitates, but she obeys. The bullet hits Bond, he falls from the train and disappears into the river below. Back in London, MI6 believes Bond is dead. At the same time, another disaster strikes. The stolen hard drive allows a mysterious hacker to infiltrate MI6's systems. A massive cyberattack exposes secret files and triggers a bomb inside MI6 headquarters, killing several agents. M is blamed for the failure and is forced to defend her leadership in front of the British government. Many believe her time as the head of MI6 is over, but the attacks aren't random. Someone is targeting her personally. Meanwhile, far away, Bond is actually alive. Severely injured and emotionally broken, he chooses to stay hidden and live off the grid. He spends his days drinking and trying to forget the life he left behind. But when news spreads about the attack on MI6, something inside him changes. Bond returns to London. When he walks back into MI6 headquarters, everyone is shocked, especially M. Officially, Bond was declared dead. However, Bond isn't the same man anymore. His injuries have weakened him. During physical and psychological tests, he performs poorly. In reality, he's not fully ready to return to duty. But MI6 needs him. M clears him for active service anyway. Bond's mission is to track down the person responsible for the cyberattacks. His investigation leads him to Shanghai, where he follows a trail of assassins and secret contacts. During a tense encounter in a skyscraper, Bond fights a silent killer in the dark. After a brutal struggle, he manages to defeat him and finds a clue: a casino in Macau. At the casino, Bond meets Severini, a mysterious woman connected to the mastermind behind everything. She is terrified of the man she works for, but secretly hopes Bond can free her from his control. She agrees to take Bond to him, but the meeting turns into a trap. Bond is captured and brought to an abandoned island where he finally meets the man behind the attacks, Silva. Silva is brilliant, unpredictable, and terrifyingly calm. But the biggest shock comes when he reveals the truth. Silva used to be an MI6 agent, one of M's best. Years ago, he was captured during a mission. Instead of negotiating for his release, M sacrificed him to protect larger secrets. Silva was tortured for months and eventually attempted suicide by swallowing a cyanide capsule. He survived, but the poison disfigured his face and destroyed his life. Now, Silva wants revenge. Not against MI6, against M before Bond can stop him. Silva allows himself to be captured on purpose. His arrest is all part of an elaborate plan. Once inside MI6 custody, he hacks their system again and escapes during a coordinated attack on a government hearing where M is testifying. Silva storms the building with heavy weapons. Chaos erupts. Bond arrives just in time to save M and helps her escape before Silva can reach her. Realizing that Silva's resources and hacking abilities make London too dangerous, Bond decides to take M somewhere unexpected: his childhood home in the Scottish Highlands. A place called Skyfall. Bond and M arrive at the remote estate, where they meet Kincaid, the old caretaker who helped raise Bond after his parents died. Knowing Silva will come for them, Bond prepares for war. But instead of using high-tech MI6 equipment, they rely on simple traps, old weapons, and the rugged terrain around the house. Soon enough, Silva's men arrive. A massive battle breaks out across the dark countryside. Explosions light up the night as Bond and Kincaid fight to defend the house, while M hides inside. They manage to destroy many of Silva's forces, but the house is eventually blown apart. Silva finally reaches M. Bond chases them through the burning ruins and into a small chapel hidden in the hills. There, Silva holds M at gunpoint. His twisted plan is revealed. He wants them to die together. He presses the gun against both their heads, forcing Bond to watch. Before he can pull the trigger, Bond throws a knife across the room. The blade strikes Silva in the back. Silva collapses. For the first time in years, his revenge fails. But the fight has already taken its toll. M is badly wounded during the attack. As she sits beside Bond in the quiet chapel, she finally allows herself a moment of peace. She tells Bond that she always knew the job might end like this. Moments later, M dies. Her death marks the end of an era for MI6. In the aftermath, a new M takes charge of the agency, and Eve, who left fieldwork after accidentally shooting Bond, becomes Miss Moneypenny, the secretary in the new MI6 office. Bond reports for duty once again. Standing in the familiar office with the new M, Bond is ready to continue his mission. The legend of James Bond lives on, and the world will always need him. After Silva escapes from MI6 custody, London is thrown into chaos. The man who once worked for the agency now knows every weakness in its system. He hacks cameras, tracks movements, and manipulates the entire city like a chessboard. His only goal is simple: destroy M. Meanwhile, Bond realizes that fighting Silva using modern intelligence tools will not work. Silva is always one step ahead in the digital world, so Bond makes a bold decision. Instead of hiding inside London, he takes M somewhere Silva would never expect. Bond brings her to his childhood home in the remote Scottish Highlands, a place called Skyfall. The old mansion sits alone among the cold mountains and empty land. It's quiet, isolated, and far from the reach of MI6 technology. There they meet Kincaid, the elderly caretaker, who has been protecting the estate for years and remembers Bond as a young boy who lost his parents. Bond tells them the truth. Silva will come, and when he does, they must be ready. Without access to high-tech MI6 weapons, Bond begins preparing the old house for a battle. He sets homemade traps around the property, prepares old hunting rifles, and plans every corner of the land carefully. Kincaid helps him turn the quiet estate into a battlefield and watches silently as Bond prepares. For the first time, she sees not just the agent, but the man who grew up without a family, shaped by loss and loyalty. Night falls soon. Headlights appear in the distance. Silva and his mercenaries arrive in armored vehicles, surrounding the Skyfall estate. The quiet hills suddenly explode with gunfire. The battle begins. Bond and Kincaid fight fiercely, using traps and explosives to slow Silva's men. The house becomes a war zone as bullets tear through walls and flames begin to spread. Several of Silva's soldiers fall, but they keep coming. Silva eventually brings a helicopter into the fight, turning the situation even worse. Rockets blast the mansion, destroying large parts of the house. Bond realizes they cannot hold the position any longer. As the estate burns, Bond triggers a massive explosion, destroying the helicopter and most of Silva's remaining forces. The mansion collapses into flames behind them, but Silva survives. In the chaos, he manages to capture M and escapes into the nearby hills. Bond chases them through the dark forest, following their trail through the cold night. Finally, the pursuit leads him to a small stone chapel hidden among the mountains. Inside the chapel, Silva holds M at gunpoint. His twisted revenge reaches its final moment. Silva tells M that she betrayed him years ago, choosing the agency over his life. Now he wants them to die together. He presses the gun against both of their heads, forcing M to share his fate. Bond watches carefully from the shadows. At the perfect moment, he throws a knife across the room. The blade strikes Silva directly in the back. Silva slowly collapses to the ground, shocked that his revenge has failed at the very last second. As he dies, he stares at M one final time, the woman he once trusted the most. The threat is finally over, but the battle has already taken its toll. M was wounded during the attack on the mansion. As she sits beside Bond inside the quiet chapel, she grows weaker. For the first time, she allows herself to stop fighting. She tells Bond that she always believed he would return when the world needed him the most. Moments later, M peacefully dies in Bond's arms. Her death marks the end of an era for MI6. Back in London, the agency begins rebuilding after the devastating attacks. A new leader takes control of MI6, promising to guide the organization into a new future. Eve, the agent who accidentally shot Bond at the beginning of the mission, decides to leave field work behind. Instead, she takes a new role inside MI6 headquarters. Her name is Eve Moneypenny. Bond returns to duty once again, walking into the familiar MI6 office. Waiting for him inside is the new M, ready to assign the next mission. The world is still full of threats, and James Bond is ready to face them. The legend continues. After the intense battle at the Skyfall estate, the long war between Bond and Silva finally comes to an end. The cold silence of the Scottish mountains returns, but the damage has already been done. Inside the small chapel hidden in the hills, Bond sits beside M as she takes her final breaths. The woman who led MI6 for years, who made impossible decisions to protect the country, is now slowly fading away. For a moment, there are no missions, no enemies, and no agents. Just Bond and the person who trusted him the most. M quietly tells Bond that she never doubted him. Even when others believed he was too old or too broken to continue, she knew he would always come back when the world needed him. Bond holds her hand as she closes her eyes for the last time. M dies peacefully beside him. Her death marks the end of one of the most powerful eras in MI6 history. After the events at Skyfall, the British government begins rebuilding the intelligence agency. The attacks caused by Silva exposed many weaknesses, forcing MI6 to rethink how it operates in a modern world where enemies can attack not only with guns, but also through computers and information. Despite all the damage, MI6 survives. Back in London, Bond returns to the agency headquarters. The building is different now. The old leadership is gone, and a new chapter is beginning. A new man has taken the position of M, the head of MI6. Unlike the previous M, who had a complex relationship with Bond, the new leader approaches things with a colder and more calculated attitude. But he still understands one thing clearly: agents like Bond are necessary. Meanwhile, Eve, the agent who accidentally shot Bond during the mission in Istanbul, has decided that field operations are no longer for her. The guilt of that moment changed her life. Instead, she takes a new role inside MI6 headquarters. She introduces herself to Bond with a smile. Her full name is Eve Moneypenny. This reveals a familiar character that has always been part of the James Bond world, the trusted secretary who works closely with them and often shares a playful relationship with Bond. Soon after, Bond walks into the office of the new M for the first time. The room feels strangely familiar. Dark wooden walls